Welcome back to another interview for my self-care for impasse giveaway. Today, we are interviewing Kathleen Panning. She is from Aflame Ministry Consulting. And Kathleen is a retired pastor. She was the first female pastor in each position where she served, which is amazing. She was a mentor to 14 seminary students, and since retiring, has started her own business working with female faith leaders. Her business includes an interfaith radio show that she's hosted for 4 years, and I've been interviewed on that. And she's launching a TV channel on Roku. Kathleen is passionate about developing leaders, especially women in leadership positions, so God's love radiates through them in family, work, community, and the world. And even though her focus is on females, men, we also have some gems for you too. So stay tuned.
Yeah.
And, by the way, pick up her free gifts as well as gifts from the giveaway at this link that I'm putting on the screen right now for you. And you can get access to 20 plus gifts like that, all for free. So check hers out. And by the way, it's about leadership. She's got a whole bundle of tips and informations about how to be a better leader and how to have better communication skills. And she'll tell you more about that in a bit. But be sure to pick up her gift even right now while you're listening. So welcome, Kathleen.
Thank you
you so much.
It's great to be here with you.
Yeah. So what was it like being the first female pastor at every place you've ever worked?
Well, it was kind of like breaking the mold, so to speak. I grew up in a Christian denomination where even when I was growing up, the image of pastor was always male. And I became a pastor 10 years after my denomination started allowing women to be pastors. So I was still a novelty in many respects. And it was kind of like, can we hear God's message through a different voice than we're used to? Can it come in a different package than we're used to? And that was pretty hard for a lot of people. There were people who have beliefs about the roles of men and women and what women should or shouldn't do, and even understandings of scripture about the roles of women. And so it was really breaking the mold. And thankfully, the denomination had done a lot of the studies before me, but still, it was like, I'm not so sure about this. And I remember one situation early on in my ministry. I served 2 small rural congregations, and I had funerals right out the door, and more funerals. Well, as many funerals in the first 5.5 months as my predecessor had in 3 years of ministry there.
Wow.
And so that was like 14 funerals. And after one of the funerals, while I was leaving the cemetery after the committal there, I had a gentleman who was not a member of the congregation come up to me and say that when he saw me walk out, his thought was, I'm not going to get anything out of this. But that was one of the biggest compliments. Was he said, you know what? I got a lot out of this. So it was, again, breaking the mold and the expectations that people have about how God comes to us and how, the shape, the form, the opportunities, the people from whom we can hear God's voice. And that's been an eye-opener for me as well as for many other people along the way, because it helps me open my eyes to see God's voice, God's spirit coming to us in many different forms and many different people.
I mean, here in the US, it's common for us to think of God the Father, but in
Mhm.
like Middle East or in like India, for example, it's Divine Mother, right? And
Mhm.
even in parts of Asia, Divine Mother. And there's so many aspects of God. It's not just a patriarchal
Right.
society and like God the Father only. And it's wonderful that you're bringing in that divine feminine aspect.
Yeah, and there throughout the Christian and Jewish scriptures, there are many images of mothering that are associated with God. And so God is neither male nor female. We just, English limits us to two pronouns, personal pronouns, either male or female, except God is not an it. So, um, we have to use one or the other. And
Mhm.
sometimes, and it's traditionally been male. So
Mhm.
good,
And
bad, or indifferent.
and
Yeah.
is that one of the reasons why you've been so inspired to work with females predominantly with what you're doing?
Well, um, women still have um, are not always accepted as well as men in like in many other occupations and professions. Women sometimes have a harder road in many of those, and that's still very true in ministry in most faiths within Christianity and within Judaism and Islam does not really have a role for women in faith leadership position, uh, nothing comparable to an imam. And so I mean, when I started out, I thought if I could survive this for 5 years, I would be doing great. And that's been
Mhm.
40 years ago, 41.
Wow.
So and I hear that with a lot of other women struggling with that. And so um, that's, that's partly why, it's based out of my experience and the struggles I felt as well as a woman in ministry. So,
Thank you for being a pioneer.
oh, you're welcome. I never set out to be a pioneer, just to follow the calling that I felt
Mhm.
inside.
Mhm.
So, yeah,
Yeah. Wow.
yeah.
Great job.
Thank you.
And what skill, if you could give us an example of one skill that could help men and women be better leaders, what would that
Uh,
be?
the one that comes most to my mind is listening. Uh, and I don't know about you, Tiffany, but when I grew up, I was told to be quiet and to listen. But what that really meant was not what I've learned about listening along the way. And it's so much, we live in such a noisy world these days
Mhm.
where it's really difficult to listen. There's studies that have been done that say that the average or the basic adult attention span now is like 7 seconds, which is
Boy, that's
shorter.
even less than before.
Yeah, and it's they say a goldfish has 9 second attention span.
Oh,
So
no.
you know that
We're less than
this is
goldfish.
yeah, less than a goldfish. And so and it used to be that like 50 years ago or so that for every age up to about the age of 20 we added a minute to our attention span, so it became like a 20-minute attention span, but that has just totally gone away. So because of that, and there's so many things coming at us left, right, our phones are on all the time, computers are on, uh,
Mhm.
there's sounds and noises around us all the time. So how do we slice through that
Mhm.
to really really listen? And there's some listening is not just hearing the sounds. Real listening is understanding what's there. And it's going below sometimes the words that are there to the feelings that someone is sharing. And so that that takes a lot of concentration. And it can be very exhausting to deeply
Mhm.
listen to people. and it's picking up the little cues, like a deep sigh that somebody makes, um,
Mhm.
uh, a period of silence. What are they thinking? Asking some of those kinds of questions, not judgmentally, but as a gift to open people up, and not with a saying of, there's different ways to ask a question, like, okay, what are you thinking? Versus, what are you thinking? And the first one carries like, oh, come on, it's it's critical of somebody, but the second one can be an opportunity for somebody to share something. So we have to be careful how we say things as well as what we say. But listening, the other part of listening, to go back to that, so many times I see people interrupting each other during a conversation. That's not
Mhm.
listening.
Mhm.
And the other part of it is, what's playing in our heads while somebody else is talking. Many times in a tense situation, um, it's often like, okay, this is what I don't agree with. This is the point I got to make. This is, it's the tape we have running in our heads of how we're going to respond.
Mhm.
But that's not truly listening either. So to be able to silence that tape, to not interrupt, and to be there to understand somebody else. And that's really critical in business, in our relationships, in just being people. And to give someone your attention, to truly listen, can be such a gift. I don't know about you or the listeners, but
Mhm.
to really feel heard these days is is uncommon. I find so many people just hungering for somebody to really hear them, to understand. And so that's one of the points in my leadership bundle, but it would be also one of the biggest things, a skill for any leader to
Mhm.
develop. So,
Mhm. And do you think that there needs to be a certain amount of empathy or emotional intelligence to be able to be a good leader?
mm, oh yeah, yeah. We have to be aware of our own emotions and
Mhm.
how those play into what we do, and how to receive someone else's emotions without being sucked in, so to speak. Um, Part of that comes from a simple language, understanding that when somebody else is speaking or
Mhm.
sharing their feelings, those are their feelings. Even when they say, well, you make me so mad,
Mhm.
you know, personally, I don't think I have the ability to make anybody angry. I may say things or do things that they dislike,
Right.
but I can't force somebody to be angry. I
Nope, no
can't
one can
even,
make me angry. Only I
yeah,
can do that to myself.
right. And same thing with happiness. I can't
Mhm.
make somebody happy, but we can have the capability to do that to ourselves. So that's part of my emotional intelligence. But it's also being aware of the language of other people coming at me, so I don't buy into some of that, so to speak, and
Mhm.
allow it to be their feelings, and
Mhm.
honor their feelings for what they are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And is it something that can be trained? Because some people think they're either empathic or they're not. But I think so this is just me, like, as an
Mhm.
observer. When I've noticed people who get awakened to be curious about a spiritual path and they start
Mhm.
meditating and they start doing spiritual practices, their heart chakra opens, their crown chakra opens. And
Mhm.
as those open, the ability to be more sensitive, to be more empathic, to be more compassionate, to be more
Mhm.
loving and caring and kind and respectful gets awakened in them. So
Yeah.
To me, I don't think you're either born that way or you're not. I think it's something that we can also cultivate and develop, including cultivating and developing leaders born a leader.
Mhm. Yeah,
Though we might have some, strengths coming into it that are nice.
I would agree. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I agree with you that empathy is something we can learn, and those who are empathic earlier in life probably learned it earlier in life because of
Mhm,
the people around them. But any of us can learn that if we allow ourselves to, for one, and see it as something that's really going to be a benefit to you, to us, to be more useful than the other ways we've been dealing with it, with some of those things. And leadership skills, obviously, to me, it's obvious that yes, we can all grow and learn leadership skills. There are some people who tend to be um, more outspoken, more of the follow me type of person as a personality from the get
mhm.
go. But there's all kinds of leadership, and you don't have to be the one, you know, drumming up the troops and marching straight ahead to be a good leader. There are many ways to be a leader and to be very impactful and empathetic leader.
And leaders can be a leader in a family, a leader in a community, a leader
Mhm.
in your on your team in whatever job you have. It doesn't have to be a political leader
Oh,
or a CEO of a company. Like there's so
mhm.
many, as you were saying, like there's so many forms of leadership.
Yeah.
And I know for me being an entrepreneur, my capacity as a leader has definitely grown and developed over
Mhm.
time. I'm a better leader now than I was 20 years ago or when I started healing and getting
Mhm.
paid for it at 8 years old. Like, I'm a so
Oh,
much better leader now, right? It's in my 40s, like, I've
mhm.
learned, the
Hopefully, yeah.
those pluses and minuses along the way,
Mhm.
and so I'm curious, like, what got you into your radio show and your TV show and wanting to help other leaders?
Yeah, getting into the radio show that's one of those synchronicities that I still don't know exactly how it happened. I got a phone call from someone offering me to be interviewed first, and then after being interviewed once or twice, to host a show. And that was on a different station than what I'm with today. And um, that format was not that I was using or they wanted me to use at that point was not my favorite. But when I got the people I wanted to interview and to do the kind of show that I wanted to do, it was like, oh wow, this is fun, you know. And I'm meeting all these wonderful people like yourself and so many others. I've done over 150 shows over the years, and it's, you know, mostly interviews and finding all of these people with wonderful skills, wonderful things to offer for ministry, for leadership, for all kinds of ways to utilize that. And, the first place we're a leader is with ourselves. And
Yes.
then we can start to lead others. And anybody who's in a faith community, regardless of your position in that community, you can be a leader in that. And it could be a committee, it could be, any kind of ways that you do that. But I've just had so much fun doing that. That I've kept at it for it's just about 4 years now.
And what is
And
it called, and where can they find your radio show?
It's called a flame ministry, and the idea is to be on fire with and sharing God's love. That's the flame of
Mm.
God's love. And it's my business is a flame ministry consulting. So the show is just a flame ministry. You can find the station. The show is live when I do it. So that's on boldbravemedia.com. And you can look for a flame ministry, or you can look under my name, or you can find the podcasts because it's put up as a podcast after that on Apple Podcast, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Spreaker, and a few others as well. But those are the main ones. And look for my name or a flame ministry, and you should be able to find it on any of those places. And the TV show is just kind of grown out as an added extension of the radio show, and that's what it'll be.
And
So,
I love the name of Flame Ministries. Like when I hear that, it reminds me of a song that we sing at
mm,
my church that goes, "My heart's aflame, my soul's afire
mm.
for you, just you."
Beautiful.
And it's and when I hear those words, it does, like, it
Mhm,
ignites that flame within me for God
mhm.
in a bigger way, and so that's why I love your name, by the
Uh,
way.
Thank you.
Mhm,
Yeah.
and if you've been enjoying Kathleen's insights, pick up her free gift. It's her leadership bundle, which has, what is it, 3 different things in it. Will you talk about it for
Yeah.
us?
3 components. The first is a mini course of 7 sessions on communication skills. And they're just short little videos, nothing long, but a taste of some of ways 7 communication keys to unlock your leadership genius is what it's called. And so that's one of them. And the a second piece of it is also 5, actually there's 6 videos. There's a bonus one in there that's not talked about earlier, but it's 5 little videos called Parables from Nature. These are things I did on Facebook Live as little parables, and I'll give you a little hint about one of them. One of them has to do with how ants or how doubts are like ants. So
Ooh,
that's
that's interesting.
a little teaser on one of them. It's one of my favorite little things. And then the third component, which is really quite important and valuable, is the opportunity to have a 15-minute laser coaching session with me, and it'll be purely coaching on some issue of communication that you'd like to talk about. And there'll be links and follow-up emails for you to schedule that with me. So,
And any kind of communication, like whether it's personal, professional?
yep, yep,
Okay,
yep.
great.
We'll look into whatever you got and take a deep 15 minutes can um, produce quite a bit if we
Mhm.
laser focus on it.
Nice. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. And I've got the link up on the screen for you. So, everyone,
Thank you.
check out her gift along with the 20 other contributors
Mm-hmm.
that are all sharing from our heart space to help uplift you, provide tools and resources to help you stand in your power, have more health, more prosperity, greater connection to source,
Yeah.
and just be the best version of yourself. So,
Yeah.
all of that starts with self care, hence the
Mm-hmm.
name of my giveaway, Self Care for Empaths, because we can't give to others if we're on empty. We got to
Right.
start with us.
And that's so important, and to take care of ourselves so that we can share with others.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, thank you again. Much love.
Thank you, Tiffany. This has been awesome.
Wonderful. Any final words of wisdom? before we sign off?
We all have so much to share, and in so many different ways, and how we communicate that is important. And sharing from a heart space of love be an added benefit to all of that. So thank you, Tiffany, for what you're doing and for all of the gifts you've gathered together in this giveaway. So
my pleasure. All right. Much love and
bye.
blessings. See ya.
Bye.